when I was in middle school and high school, I never really had a lot of friends. That's the thing. Never had a lot of friends. And at first, that really bothered me. When I was in middle school and when I was a freshman in high school and kind of a sophomore, somewhat, it kind of, this way of thinking kind of disintegrated in my brain in my sophomore year of high school. But in those years of middle school and in freshman year, I really wanted friends, and I don't, it's very natural for someone to not want to be a loner. You don't want to be a loner. You don't want to be a loner because being a loner is stigmatized as weirdo, right? You're a loner, that means you're a weirdo, you must be ugly, or you must be a nerd or whatever. So I never really had a lot of friends growing up. And then something really clicked in the basically latter part of sophomore year when I was living in Mexico, because Mexicans are very cliquish people, and here I was living in Mexico, and I didn't have a lot of friends in Mexico. I didn't have a lot of friends in Mexico. It was easier to make friends in Mexico, I will say that, and it was easier to have a social life. It's actually really easy to have a social life in Mexico, because in Mexico you just talk to people and they're, hey, you want to have tacos? Yeah, sure. People are really chill when I was living there. So it was easy to have a social life, but even though it was easier to have a social life in Mexico, I still didn't have a huge amount of friends. There was a couple of guys that I would hang out with, and that was it. You know, you go have tacos once in a while, and that's pretty much it. You know, that was it. And something happened in the latter part of my sophomore year where I just didn't care anymore. You know, I just didn't care anymore. You know that meme online of the, what do you call it? The not alpha male, a sigma male. The whole sigma male meme where they show a scene from the movie Taxi, and they have Robert De Niro in a taxi cab and all this stuff. That pretty much was the way I kind of thought in the latter part of my sophomore year in high school. It was just, I just was like, you know what? I like being alone. Being alone ain't that bad. You know? And I didn't fully come to that realization. I still wanted friends, but I was more so willing to accept solitude in that part of my life. And what I started doing in my sophomore year was going out alone. Mexican cartels weren't much of a thing in those days. This was 2005 and 2006. Now, not too long after that, I left Mexico in the latter part of 2006. Not too long after that, it started getting bad. And things really blew up in the early 20-teens. And there was a mini civil war that broke out in the southern part of Mexico in, I want to say, 2013 or so. There was a little civil war between ranchers and cartels, and things got really nasty, really bad in the late 2000s, going into the 20-teens, and things are still bad in Mexico. But at that time, when I was living there, I remember going to downtown Morelia. Morelia right now is considered a dangerous city, and it was considered a very dangerous city in the mid-20-teens. In 2014, around that year, Morelia, which is the capital city of Michoacan, which is a region in the southern part of Mexico, Morelia, which was a beautiful city when I visited it, it eventually became known as a very dangerous city. And I went there in 2006, and I stayed in Michoacan for about 2 weeks. So I spent some time in Morelia, and we would just go outside and walk at night. It was crazy, guys. We would walk outside at night and nothing would happen. We'd be outside at night walking around. We'd have a pizza. Nothing would happen. We go to the mall. It was safe. I never got robbed, never saw a robbery, nothing like that. So At that time when I was living there, it was very safe. Actually, for the most part, it was very safe. Now, of course, you're gonna have bad areas everywhere, but for the most part, Mexico felt very safe when I was living there. And yeah, when I was living in Mexico, I started doing this thing where I would go outside alone. I would just leave. I lived in this apartment, and I remember on a Friday afternoon after class, I would go home, I'd shower, get dressed and everything, and then I'd say I'm gonna go out, and I would just walk out and just walk around random places. I'd walk to the downtown area and eat tacos, have some fried fish straight from the sea. It was a beautiful life. Sometimes I would say, you know what? I'd get on the bus and I'd say, you know what? I'm gonna go see a movie. And there were three movie theaters in town. I remember, and there were three movie theaters in town. I remember there was a well, there was three. No, no, no. There was two movie theaters. There were two movie theaters in town. There was the expensive movie theater and there was the poor people movie theater, and they were both good. The only difference between the rich people movie theater was that the rich people movie theater was 2 stories, and it looked exactly like a American theater that you would go to today. It looked exactly like it. It had escalators. It had the big film posters advertising upcoming films all over the walls. It had big popcorn machines. It was just like a movie theater that I would have gone to in California. It was no different. It was amazing. And they would charge you 25 pesos to go see a film. 25 pesos is $2.50. That's how much it cost for a ticket at that time, right? And that was considered expensive for a lot of people at that time. Then sometimes I'd go to the poor movie theater, the poor people movie theater. Poor people movie theater. It looked like an American movie theater from the 1980s. That's how it looked like. One of those old ass movie theaters that you went to as a kid growing up in the 90s or in the late 80s. And the movie theater that you attended at that time probably doesn't exist. It probably got demolished or got remodeled into something else. Who knows? It's a jewelry store now. I don't know what it is. It's a strip mall somewhere. I don't know. But I remember living in California, we would go to we would go to this movie theater. It was called the Century 21 movie. Was it Century 21? I don't remember the name of the theater, but there was this theater that we would go to growing up in the 90s, and I remember seeing the film The Pianist in this theater. It was a really cool theater, and it was right next to a Chinese restaurant. So there was the Chinese restaurant, and then there was the movie theater. So you go to the movie theater, and then you have Chinese food afterwards. And it was a really cool theater. It didn't have that facade. It didn't have that panache and fanciness of current day theaters that you have now, but it had that 1980s feel to it when you walked in. That it had that old ass 1980s, 1990s, even 1970s feel to it. It had the old popcorn machines, I remember, and it was something very depressing, but at the same time something aesthetically pleasing about it. And the yeah, but that theater doesn't even exist anymore. It's probably a store or something. I don't know what it is. Your anthropomorphometry is similar to Mexican. Yeah, yeah, because Mexicans and Middle Eastern people are kind of related if you think about it. I mean, North Africans controlled chunks of Spain for centuries, so there was a lot of intermarriage that went on. So that's the reason why Mexican people look Middle Eastern. There was a movie theater near me that was like from the 80s, and it looked like that was the last time it was cleaned. Finally knocked it down last year to build. There you go. There you go. Yeah, they're destroying. They have destroyed a lot of these old ass theaters, and yeah. But I remember living in Mexico for what was it, over a year, and then coming to Texas.